I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea how to introduce this next interview. It's with a man called Ahmed Alnaouq. He has co-edited a collection of essays written by people from Gaza called We Are Not Numbers. If you've heard of Ahmed before, it might be through Palestine Deep Dive. It might be because you've seen him on the news talking about the fact that he lost 21 of his family members in Israeli airstrikes in October 2023. Our conversation is about politics and it's about the genocide, but fundamentally it's about how do you as a human being live with the fact that your people are being subject to a genocide? How do you live? How do you shoulder the burden of grief? How do you deal with trauma when more atrocities are being committed every single day? It's probably one of the most emotionally affecting conversations I've ever had at all in my career, for as long as I've worked at Novara Media. And normally I'd say, I hope you enjoy the interview, but that seems entirely the wrong word. So I'm going to say, please just watch all of it.
Just after I got my job at Palestine Deep Dive, I did this amazing interview with one of my Palestinian friends. And she came to Palestine Deep Dive here next to yours. And we started recording. And I said, let's see how many hours we record. And we recorded for 6 hours.
No.
I swear to God, 6 hours.
Were you doing it all in English or were you doing it in
It was all in
Arabic?
English, yeah. And I was like, okay, I prepared some questions to ask her.
Yeah.
After 6 hours, I felt like I only asked half of the questions.
Yeah. I think there's something which is, because what you were doing was a very different kind of interview from what I'm doing, because I'm doing an interview where it's coming from the position of I'm trying to understand you and I'm trying to understand your experience. It's a completely different thing when your starting point is we actually really understand each other's experience. And that's our beginning rather than our end.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so 6 hours, lock in.
6 hours, yeah. But it was a very
Let's
powerful
go.
interview, and it got hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube and millions of views on social media. It's because she has a very powerful story.
You know what I think you're doing? It's
Yeah.
like when you get compared to the X, right? And the X was like the best cook and so clever and da-da-da-da-da, just to make you up your game. That's how I'm feeling.
No.
Oh, I got hundreds of thousands of views. That was the best interview.
No, it was the best interview because she and I had the same story, which is both of us lost our entire families in the war. And we were talking about our families and about Gaza, about our memories. And that's something, when I was recording, I was feeling so much emotions. And I could spend days and days and days of recording. But that is a story you can't find every day.
Can I ask you a question? And it's also okay if you don't want to answer it. Having lost your whole family, have you had any kind of therapy or counseling?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But I need, to be honest, I need a lot of therapy and counseling. I feel that I'm not normal. And one of the effects of losing all my family and the trauma I'm experiencing is that I feel sometimes I'm losing my memory. There's a lot of things that I forget. I forget a lot of my past. I forget a lot of things that happened during the day, and I'm not focused. So sometimes when I do my job, when I do interviews and stuff, and I would be very focused, 1 hour kills me. I feel like after 1 hour, I need to rest. I need to relax. So all the time I'm distracted. But that's beside the trauma and the pain that I always feel and so many other things. But yeah, I feel we all, not me, all of us Palestinians who live in Gaza and outside Gaza, we all need therapists. We all need therapy. And there was a report in 2020 by Save the Children, that before the 7th of October. And they said that 80% of the children in Gaza show symptoms of PTSD and depression, and they need psychological help. That was before the war. Imagine now, after the war in Gaza.
How do you find a therapist who can understand the context that you're coming from? Is that something that worries you? Is that, you're living here in the UK, who has the training, the experience, the knowledge?
I don't. I have been searching for a therapist for a long, long time, and I talked to one of the therapists, and I was told that she's the best in her field, because she lived in the Middle East and she met with so many people like me. But at the same time, she said that she doesn't guarantee that she can really be of great help, because what we are going through is like not so many people experience that before.
It's also different from, oh, I had a bad relationship with my dad. It's,
Exactly.
you
It's
know,
exactly. It's like I don't know. The amount of a trauma that we're feeling, Palestinians, is unparalleled. I don't know of any other people who have suffered as much as we suffered, Palestinians. And you know, before the war, I was seeing a therapist before the war, and I have always had depression. And even telling her about how I feel before the war, even the therapist herself started crying in front of me. And that's some, I know that therapists shouldn't do that, but she couldn't hold her tears. So it's very difficult to find someone who can really understand the gravity of your situation. And I know I have many friends who are in Gaza who are therapists. And a few months ago, I called one of them and I told him how you deal with your patients in Gaza. And he told me, Ahmed, I am a psychiatrist and I need a psychiatrist. I need help. He told me that he can't really help. What he's trying to do is just disperse some medications and try to talk to them. But he himself thinks that what he's doing is nonsense and doesn't really help, because he himself needs helping.
there's also in a way, the entire idea of mental illness sort of breaks down because it's not an illness or a maladapted response to something. It's actually a very natural and rational response to the circumstances you're in. And that's different. That's different from something like anxiety, where you're being triggered to have a really big response to something which isn't actually that big a deal. In many ways, this is a proportionate response to the devastation
Yeah.
that you're witnessing all around you.
And in Gaza, we don't have PTSD. We have something called not post-traumatic stress disorder. We have a chronic traumatic stress disorder. So it's never ending. The trauma that we're living, it did not end so that we can have a therapy for. It's continuous. It's a chronic. And that's why it's very difficult for therapists to help the people in Gaza and help us, even us. You know, I always say that I'm the most privileged Palestinian there is, maybe. I am from Gaza, but now I live in the UK. I have a job. I have freedom of expression and movement, I think. And I'm not starving. I have internet connection. I can speak and I can move. I can travel. Unlike all the people in Gaza.
Do you ever have survivor's guilt because of it?
It's overwhelming. It's destroying me. A few days ago, I was doing an event with Jeremy Corbyn in Sheffield, and it was an amazing event. And then after we finished the event, it went amazing. I loved it. And I felt so much guilty because I thought, okay, what am I doing here? Like, my people are literally dying, and I'm here, like, enjoying my freedom of movement and speech. And I'm taking a train from here to there and staying at a hotel. And I felt so guilty for living my normal life here. And it's not a normal life. I never had a normal life ever since the genocide started. But it's overwhelming. Survivor's guilt and also fear as a Palestinian who live here in a very hostile country. All the people in the UK are amazing. I love the UK and I love the people in the UK. But I always feel like the government is hostile to us Palestinians. So I always felt a sense of real freedom. You know, I say we live in freedom here, but I never felt the full meaning of freedom in this country or safety in this country.
We're going to come back to that because I realize that I've not even introduced you
Sorry.
for our audience. No. It's a sign of a good conversation. Ahmed Alnaouq, thank you so much for coming onto Downstream. There are going to be people who are watching this who've never met a Palestinian person before. And everything they know about Palestine and Palestinians comes from watching the news. For someone who is completely unfamiliar with the culture, you know, imagine you are a non-Palestinian and you're being invited around to someone's house for dinner. What's the vibe? What can they expect?
If you are invited by a Palestinian
Yeah.
for dinner, you will expect to be around people who are very, very friendly and generous and loving. And I remember when I was in Gaza, sometimes I would work as a fixer, and every time I would accompany or I do fixing for foreigners, I would always invite them to come to my home and meet with my family. And my family, they would meet with the strangers who are coming from England or America or Spain or whatever. And they would show them the biggest love they could ever feel. Because we, the Palestinians in Gaza, we love foreigners. Unlike people here. We love foreigners. We are very generous. The people in Gaza are very, very, very generous. And I remember my mom would save for months in order to buy a gift for her niece or her nephew. And I would tell her, Mom, we were really struggling financially, and we deserve this more than others. Which, no, we have to be generous to others. We'd always invite people to come to our home and offer them the best of our food, the best of our everything.
It's such
Because we
a
love
Arab
them.
hospitality thing of, you feed your guest even if you're starving.
Even if you're starving, you feed your guests. You show them love. You show them support. You smile to them. You can, in the Arabic culture as well, we have like a norm that if one day a stranger, comes to your home and knocks at your home, you have to host them for 3 days before you ask them why they're here for, even if you don't know them. That's that's reality. It's still there. So we love others. We are friendly. We are very, very, very generous, even if we are starving. And we love to meet with the new people, new cultures, new people from different backgrounds. And that is something that I really, that's something that the people in Gaza are really struggling with, is that for the past 17 years, we have been locked down. We have been locked up. We are not allowed to travel outside, and no one is allowed to travel inside to Gaza. So if you go to Gaza, you'll find only Gazans. And we don't like that. We want people from all around the world to come and visit us.
There's
and to
some
meet us.
beautiful writing in We Are Not Numbers about Gazans and the sea.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
The sea is our sanctuary. Okay, before I tell you more about it, when I arrived to the UK for the first time in my life, one of my friends, he asked me this question, and he told me, Ahmed, what is the most that amazed you about the UK? What did you like the most? What amazed you the most? And I told him, watching the horizon. He did not understand. And I told him, like, looking at the horizon and see, like, wide areas, spaces, without concrete buildings or Israeli soldiers at the borders. That's what amazed me the most. Gaza is very small. And we think our refuge is in the sea, because in the sea you can see the horizon, you can see the width of the sea. We feel that it is a place where we can enjoy our freedom at last, without having to because the other side is the Israeli fence. It's not a border; it's a fence, and if you go there, you'll be shot at or killed, or something will hurt you. And other places like concrete houses and buildings, and
it's closed in.
Yeah, closed in, and it's not really nice for the eyes. So when we go to the sea in Gaza is very beautiful. The sunset is very beautiful.
Oh yeah, because you'd get the sunset over the sea, wouldn't you? Because it's facing west.
Yes. And when I was young, I would always look at the sun and see why the sun doesn't like burn out when it enters the sea.
Like,
yeah, I always like that puzzled me when I was 4 or 3 years old. Yeah. Not now. I'm not that stupid. And I definitely believe that Earth is not
flat.
Flat, yeah. Okay.
That was going to be my next question.
Okay.
And so in the book, the essay from someone who's writing about the sea, they talk about the excitement of a beach day. And that is the place where Gazans go out to play football. It's a space of play and possibility. But even there, the effects of the blockade are felt. That the sea is becoming more polluted. Am I right? Am I remembering that right?
Definitely. I remember when I was going to university every day from Deir el-Balah to Gaza, and we had to the road is at the beach, and sometimes I couldn't breathe for 10 minutes in the car because the sea is so polluted. Why is it polluted? Not because the Palestinians are dirty and they dump their waste in the sea. It's because Israel, when they started the blockade on Gaza, they stopped electricity and fuel and gas on Gaza. So the water, what's the word for it?
It's like
Treatment.
yeah.
The water treatment, the sewage treatment were shut down, and then they had no option but to put all the sewage in the sea. And that was horrible because even when we go to the sea and we swim in the sea, sometimes we get infections and diseases. And there was no other way to treat all the sewage that comes from the people in Gaza, except for pumping it to the sea. And also, not only that, but in many, many, many cases during the war and before the war, where Palestinians would go to a picnic in the beach and Israel would bomb them and kill them. And I remember Huda Ghalia, and that was way before the 7th of October, way
the
before this
boys
war.
playing football is the one that I remember.
Yeah, that's Bakir family in 2014, and they were bombed while they were little kids, and they were bombed and killed. Huda Ghalia, she and her parents and her siblings went to the sea, and Israel just bombed them and killed them all, except for one girl. Her name is Huda Ghalia, and we still remember how she watched all of her family burn in front of her eyes. That was not during a war or an escalation or a genocide. That was a normal day. So many of the fishermen, when they go fish in the sea, they would be shot at and they would be killed. And by the way, one of the documentaries that we produce in We Are Not Numbers, it is called 6 Miles Out, in which we did a documentary documenting the daily life of Palestinian fishermen in Gaza. And we called it 6 Miles Out because the Gazans are allowed only 6 nautical miles into the sea. And then while we were there on their boat, and we were close to the 6 nautical miles, the Israeli boats came and started shooting at us, and we recorded that. So yeah, the sea is our sanctuary. It reminds us of freedom. We love the sea. We love swimming in the sea. We love seafood. But at the same time, it's a reminder that we live under occupation, that we live under siege.
Your father was born just a few months after the Nakba. What was the Palestine he was born into like? What did his family think was going to happen next? Did his parents think this is temporary displacement? There's going to be an agreement. We can come back. What were the circumstances like of his birth?
My father was born in 1948. And I always say this story, and I always will say this story, and will keep telling it over and over and over and over, because it's a very important story. While my grandmother was giving birth to my father on the same day in Deir al-Balah, in the Gaza Strip, after the Nakba happened, the year of the Nakba, but after the establishment of Israel, her father and her uncle went to the market, in Deir al-Balah market, and then suddenly an Israeli plane came and dropped a bomb on that market, killing 150 Palestinians while they were shopping in Deir al-Balah, including her father and her uncle. While she was giving birth to my father, that incident happened. And she was the lonely child. She was the only child. And she never recovered from losing her father.
No, I mean, how can you? In that circumstance, how can you recover? I mean,
no, you can't recover. And my grandmother, she used to live in Jaffa, now close to Tel Aviv. And my father was born during these years, and he was killed on the second Nakba, 75 years after the first Nakba. And I always say that my father, his body, his life, is the life his story is the story of Palestine. And his life embodies the struggle and the suffering and the occupation of all the Palestinians. My father had to go through all of the wars that Israel launched against the Palestinians. Well, his early days was still the Nakba, and then he witnessed the war in 1967, and then the Intifada, and the first Intifada, second Intifada, all the wars in Gaza. He was in prison many times. Do you know why?
why?
No reason. Literally, my father spent 20 years maybe working inside Israel. Do you know why? because there were no other jobs. Israel, when they occupied Gaza, they crushed the economy of Gaza in order to make all the Palestinians economically dependent on Israel. So my father and hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza had to work every day in Israel. And when they were working in Israel, what would happen? So my father was literally building homes and houses in Israel. And how was he treated? He was just arbitrarily imprisoned 4 times, doing nothing, just to remind the Palestinians that you Palestinians live under occupation, that you will always have to be humiliated under the Israeli rule. And when I was 4 years old and 5 years old, I still remember my father waking up every day at 2 a.m. in order to catch a bus to go to Israel to work. Then he would come back at the evening. And every day I would remember my mom looking at the window, waiting my father. And when he's late a few hours, she would be devastated. She would always say, something might happen to him. Israel might have killed him. Israel might have imprisoned him. What might have happened to your father, Ahmed? And she would be very, very, very worried. When he is in Israel, when he's working in Israel, how would he be treated? He was told many times by his Israeli boss or colleague or whatever, I don't know, that you Palestinians were born, you were created just to serve the Israelites. And I remember that conversation that my father told me when I was 4 years old. His Israeli boss told him that all of you were created as animals to serve us. And then we were disgusted with the shapes of these animals. We asked God to transform you into human-like animals so that we're not disgusted. I was 4 years old when my father told me this story, and I cannot forget that story. And then,
What's it like when you're 4 years old and you're hearing that? As a child, can you understand the implications of that?
No.
Or did it take you time to realize?
It did not. I did not understand the implications until this genocide. When I heard the same words from Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, and he said, we're dealing with human animals. And then I remembered, yes, my father told me the same word. He was told that. And then I did not understand the gravity of this sentence until that genocide happened, and until I saw how they treat us, how they deal with us, exactly like animals, unlike humans.
When you're talking to me, your voice is very calm. It's very low. You're not raising your voice. You're not shouting. Do you feel anger, or is it so much more than that? Because if I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, I would feel rage. I would feel such powerful, powerful rage. Is it the case that because you're Palestinian, you have to be calmer than everybody else? Or is it just you've experienced so much, it's turned into something deeper and darker and sadder?
If I were angry, I would have the right to be angry. All the Palestinians have the right to be angry. I lost everyone I care about in Gaza. I lost my father. I lost my mother 3 years ago because she was a cancer patient and Israel did not allow her to receive treatment and she died. I lost my other brother 10 years ago. I lost all my brothers, 3 brothers. I lost 3 sisters and 14 nieces and nephews who are kids in the bombing of that war. I lost many, many, many cousins that I don't dare to count. I lost many friends. I lost my home. I lost my father's home. I lost all my memories in Gaza. My memories in that place I called home. And I'm still watching genocide being perpetrated against the Palestinian people. So watching all of that, and me personally here, I don't want to talk about what I'm going through here because it's nothing compared to Gaza. So watching all of that, I have to be angry. I have the right to be angry.
But you sound calm in how you talk.
I'm calm. I'm not angry because I don't believe that anger helps me or helps my people. And ever since Israel killed my family, I have vowed that I will always be a voice for my people. And I want to be a voice for my people in the way that I am. I don't want to pretend to be angry sometimes while I'm not angry. And I don't want to pretend that I am too human. This is this is just me. This is how I was all my life. But I have the right to be angry. And so many Palestinians are angry and they have the right to be angry. And we Palestinians, unfortunately, at the same time, the way that we are dealt with and the way that we are treated here and there makes it impossible for us to make any single mistake. Because if you make a single mistake, you're done. And I always try to be aware of what I say, of what I act, and how I behave. And that's actually regrettable, because it shouldn't be this way. I should be free and normal. And I try to be. But it is very difficult to be a Palestinian, especially in a country that is complicit in the genocide against your people.
I mean, you've said that you feel that you can't make a single mistake. Every word you choose has to be exactly right.
Yes.
From my job, I know a little bit of how that feels, a tiny, tiny bit. And I feel sometimes exhausted. I feel overwhelmed. I go home. I have to cry to my husband. I have to vent. I have to get loud. Are there any spaces that you have where you can be unfiltered, where you don't have to think 2, 3, 4 times before you can speak, where you're free to make mistakes?
Well, I have to be completely honest with you. I could say that I'm 90% unfiltered here. Like, this is what I am. This is who I am. What I say in the media is what I truly believe in. I don't have to hide or lie or make excuses and all of that. And even at home, what I say to you is exactly what I say to my wife at home. Is exactly what I say at 12 or 1 a.m. when I'm very tired and relaxed. But I think many other Palestinians don't feel that they have the space to say what they truly believe in this country. Because we will always be misunderstood. We will always be misrepresented. We will always be, some of our words will always be taken out of context. And I have a lot of examples to tell you about how I was treated in the media. And how sometimes you could say a word that you mean all well, and then it could be misunderstood. Not misunderstood, because there are some people who are watching you and watching me and watching all the Palestinians who speak, and they try so hard to find anything that you say that could be misunderstood, and they would use it as a weapon against you.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit. I wanted to ask you about the really central role of literacy and education in Palestinian culture. So Palestinians have exceptionally high literacy and rates of higher education compared to the region. And then when you consider that that's in a context where Israel has targeted for decades and tried to destroy the Palestinian education system, it is absolutely incredible. And why do you think there is that importance of literacy and education in Palestinian culture? Has it always been there, or was it a response to the Nakba and the experiences of ethnic cleansing and colonial oppression?
I think it was the result of the Nakba. I don't want to claim that we were always the most educated people in the world, but I think the Nakba taught us that our only weapon is education. And I remember when I was very young, I would always hear my mom telling my sisters and my brothers that weapon is your only weapon in this life. You have to get educated. You have to be highly educated. Because if you don't have a future.
She sounds like my mom.
All mothers are the same.
All mothers are the same.
Exactly, our mothers, you know what I mean. And that's true, actually. But unfortunately, even education was not our weapon in Gaza. Because if you go to Gaza, I remember 10 years ago, the syndicate of engineers advised all those students who want to study engineering not to study engineering. Do you know why? Because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of amazing, wonderful, talented, highly experienced engineers in Gaza, and they would never have a job. My older sister, Wala, she studied computer engineering.
Wow.
And this sister, she was known to be the smartest in our family. She was very, very, very smart.
An oldest sister always is the smartest one, isn't it?
She's number 2. She's not number 1. And we're 9 children,
okay.
And she's number 2.
Wow.
Yeah, we are a lot.
Nearly a football team.
Nearly. And this sister, she was always very, very, very smart. Even I remember when she was in high school in Tawjihi, what we call it's the most important year of all of our life. And I remember at that year, the physics exam was very, very difficult, that there were even protests in Gaza.
Because of how difficult it was.
Because how difficult that was exam. And my sister got full mark that exam. She was very smart. And then she studied engineering. And the first year of engineering, she graduated with 96%. Who can get that in engineering?
That's unheard of.
Unheard of. She's very, very smart. But then she said, well, I'm going to study computer engineering. She was very smart until she graduated. And she was like, okay, 5 years of studying engineering, very high marks. I don't know if she was the first or second in her university or whatever. And that the journey of searching for a job started. And she could not find a job. For years, she could not find a job. And then she was searching for any voluntary work. She couldn't find anything. Then do you know what happened then? She had to do another degree in education in order to work as a teacher. And she got another degree in education. And she was applying for jobs for years after that. Then finally, she got a job to teach technology at a school. And that was only a few months before she and all of her children were killed.
Jesus.
That was my sister. So yeah, education was very important. But unfortunately, education didn't even secure jobs for our people. My other sister, Aya, she got her first degree was in programming, I think, I think programming. She graduated first in her class. And because you graduate first in your class, then honor had to hire her for a year as a teacher assistant. That was the law. So they hired her as a teacher assistant at the college. Then her contract ended. She started searching for jobs for years. She couldn't. What she did, she had to do another degree in accounting from a different university. And she graduated first in her university. All of the accounting and commerce department, she was first. She graduated with 95%. And that's not normal. It's very, very high. She kept searching for a job for 10 years and she couldn't find a job. Eventually, just before the war, she asked me, Ahmed, can you help buy a laptop? And I sent her some money to buy a laptop, and she said she will start working like online for people in the outside. 2 months before the war started, she finally got a job with a Saudi company. She was very happy. She sent me this message. Thank you, Ahmed. You helped me. You saved my life and all of that. Then 2 months later, Israel bombed her, killed her and all of her children. My other sister is the same. My younger brother was one of the luckiest young men. He was very hard worker. She studied English literature, and she said, like me, and said, I want to be like Ahmed.
How did it feel having a younger sibling look up to you like that and say, I want to be like you?
It was annoying.
Really?
Because I always thought that I am not good enough, and I wanted him to be better than me. And he would always tell my friends that I want to be like Ahmed.
And you were like, no, be better.
Like, Mahmoud, no, you're smarter than me. And he was smarter than me. It's a waste, wallahi. The people that we lost in Gaza, we can never replace them. We lost the best of the best. And he always looked up at me. He thought because I got a scholarship and I traveled and had always good jobs, he wanted to be like me. And I was like, Mahmoud, don't. Be better than me. You're smarter than me. And he wouldn't listen. And I don't know. So yeah.
I want to ask you something about grief, because last year I lost a parent, and it was normal, right? No, but it was normal, right? There was an illness, and it was awful, right? It was the worst experience of my life, and still, I don't feel I'm the same person. I feel fearful. I'm irrationally scared of bad things happen to people that I love. I find it really difficult to leave London and to be even a little bit far from my family, because I'm convinced that I'm going to get a phone call that something bad's happened. And all of those things are irrational responses to what's happened, all right? because something bad's happened once, it doesn't mean it's going to happen again. You lost 21 of your family members. At least in 2023.
Yes.
And the genocide is ongoing. It is likely, it is possible, you will lose more loved ones. Unlike me, your fears for the safety of the people around you are completely rational, right? It's completely rational. In terms of how you feel that in your body, in your nervous system, how do you manage it from day to day? How can you cope?
You can't cope. That's the short answer. You can't cope. I'm not coping. But there is a bigger feeling that I'm having all the time. And the feeling of responsibility. I feel like, okay, I have lost all of these people. Now I have a huge responsibility, a bigger responsibility towards the survived in Gaza, those who survived in Gaza. I have a bigger responsibility for my family who I lost, to tell their stories, to share it with the world, to talk about them and never to forget about them. And right now, I think I'm still feeling the denial of what really happened.
It doesn't feel real yet?
It doesn't feel real, to be honest. I always feel like, no, because I wasn't there. I did not see them dead. Well, I saw their bodies, but they were covered because most of them were in body parts. And part of me still denies that this happened.
It's the part of your brain that wants to protect you from it.
Exactly. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, I lost my family. So what, should I just go to my room and keep crying and never talk to anyone, never speak about Palestine or about what's going on? Will that help my family? Will that help their story? Will that help other people in Gaza? Will that help me as Ahmed? No. So from day one, when I lost my family, I decided to speak up. And I believe speaking up about my family helped me so much cope. Although I'm not coping, but it helped me cope.
As in get from day to day.
Exactly. Because otherwise, if I did not keep myself busy all the time, speaking here and there and talking about my family and work so hard, I think I would have collapsed a long time ago. But I still feel that one day, if the war ends, I might collapse.
When you speak to other Palestinians who are in similar situations, they've experienced losses like yours, does it feel comforting? Does it feel better to be around people who understand, or does it feel overwhelming because there's so much grief that's there?
What kind of questions are these?
I'm sorry. We don't have to if
no,
you
it's
don't
okay.
Want to.
Most people who have the same story like me, those who lost all of their family members in Gaza, they could not cope like I did. I'm not here to brag or something, but I think I'm the strongest person I've ever met in my life when it comes to dealing with the grief and the loss. I'm still surprised how strong I am. And some people would think that, okay, you are strong maybe because you are not connected so much to your family. I love my family. I adore my family.
You can tell from how you speak about them.
I would die for my family. Before the war started, I would always think of my father. And just thinking of my father would make me cry every day just because of how much I miss my father. My father was the most noble person you could ever meet, the most principled person you could ever meet, the most compassionate person you could ever meet. Someone who could sacrifice to the most for his children, for me personally. And I could never, thinking before the war, the thought of losing my father one day, it crushed me before I even lost him. My brothers and sisters, I never thought that one day I could lose them. My nieces and nephews, the 14 kids, the babes.
Unimaginable.
Some of them I raised. Some of them used to call me father, dad, baba. Some of them used to call me that. Because most of the time they were at the family home where I live. And we would play together. They grew up next to me. Like, they were very special to me. And we as a family, we were very connected to each other. We loved each other. We would never fight. We would never like raise voices at each other. We were very, and all of us, like people who know me and my family, we were always calm, quiet. Me and my siblings and my father, we would always be quiet and emotional. We're very emotional, all of us. So I'm so connected to my family, and I love my family so much. And nothing in the world would replace my family to me. But I lost all of them at once. So what do I do? Do I just cry and isolate myself and grieve? Or do I do something in their memory, for their memory? And I decided to do something.
When it came to putting this book together, We Are Not Numbers, which includes some of your writing, writing by one of your brothers, and also many other people from Gaza as well, how did it feel to help people connect with their stories, their voice, their history? Because it's not just you speaking for your family and you speaking for your experience. This book was about helping other people tell their story as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we started. And that's how we started We Are Not Numbers 10 years ago. And it started after the war in 2014. That war, I lost my first brother ever. And I wrote a story about him. I was encouraged to write a story about him by an American friend. Her name is Pam Bailey. And because I wrote my first story for the first time ever, helped me so much cope with the grief of losing my brother, we decided to do something about it. And we decided to encourage others, other Palestinians, to write their own personal stories. And that's how the idea of We Are Not Numbers started after the war in 2014. So what we do is that we offer a platform for youth in Gaza to write their stories. And there's something about Gaza. There are so many talents in Gaza, so many talented people, so many stories, thousands of stories, millions of stories there are in Gaza. And these young people in Gaza who are talented, who write in English, they were just waiting for the opportunity, the time to be heard.
Was there anybody who surprised you in their writing?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. Listen, I've been living in the UK for 6 years now, yeah? My first degree was in English literature in Gaza. And until now, all of the young writers in Gaza now who joined Vietnam are younger than me. They're 18, 19, and 20. And all of them speak and write better than me.
Wow.
So all of them, I swear, all of them surprised me. We recruited more than 400 writers in Gaza, young writers in Gaza, and many writers in the West Bank, in Palestine 48, and all around the world. And all of them write better than me. All of them are more talented than me. I'm not talented, they are talented. So all of them surprise me.
Do you think that there is a kind of Gazan voice? There's a way of writing or looking at the world that characterizes writing from Gaza? And if so, how would you define it?
Gaza is a strip of land in which 2.3 million people live in it. And they are just like any other people everywhere. We have talented people, we have writers, we have lovers, we have historians, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have different backgrounds. We have Muslims, we have Christians, we have seculars, we have religious people. We are diverse and we have different backgrounds. And we are just like any other people all around the world. And our writers, each of them represent him or herself, and they just write their stories. What characterizes Gaza from any other place in the world? I don't know. We're just similar to everyone. Any other people who live under siege, under occupation, under genocide, I think they would behave and they would react the same as the Palestinians in Gaza. We have nothing special, and we are special. And I think the genocide and the war and the siege and the occupation made us what we are now. If the same machinery of death was implemented here in the UK, I think the people in the UK would react and behave like the people in Gaza. because we are all humans. We are all very similar to each other. I'm not sure I answered your question, but this is how I think of it.
I mean, I guess I was thinking about it in terms of the writing itself. Like when you
The
think
writing
about,
itself.
yeah, when you think about Irish fiction, there are certain ways of writing that you think of, a certain use of irony or attitude to humor. When you think about writing
Mm.
from the Caribbean, there's a way in which you think about the writing. And I suppose I was wondering in having put this book together and having mentored, 400 young writers from Gaza, is there a tone? Is there a
Um, there is a tone, but unfortunately, um, it takes me no pleasure to say that the tone is always that within these stories you would always sense grief and pain. And in We Are Not Numbers, we don't only write about pain and grief. We encourage our writers to write about all aspects of life in Gaza, about history, about culture, about civilization, about love, about talents, about the beauty of the beach, about everything. But in every story, you will sense some kind of a grief and kind of injustice that they are living under in Gaza. That is my understanding.
about it?
This is one thing that makes me cope. Is when I walk in the streets and I see Palestinian flags everywhere. Not everywhere, but I see them everywhere. Here and in Europe, people just put Palestinian flags at their windows. And I feel, yes, we're in so much pain and suffering, but we are felt, we're hurt. And people are watching us. And you know what? One of the hardest thing ever is to suffer in silence and to grieve in silence and to lose so much, and you feel like you're all alone in the world. That's how I felt when I lost my first brother in 2014. And I did not want to write that story because I thought that no one cares about us, no one feels us, no one wants to hear our stories or read our stories. But when people read my story, I felt so much better.
So this was your brother Ayman, am I
Yes.
saying this right?
Yes.
And he was killed in an Israeli airstrike in 2014.
Yes.
Initially, you were reluctant to open up about him.
Yes.
Is that just because you thought no one wanted to hear, or were there other things that were holding you back?
One thing is because I was 19. I was reading the mainstream media, and everyone would talk about the Palestinians as numbers, as terrorists. And I had this idea that, okay, why would I write in English? Because all of these foreigners, all of these English-speaking people would think of Ayman as a terrorist. So they will not want to read his story. And also because Ayman was a member of the resistance.
So he became a militant.
Yeah, he's a militant. And so he's a militant and he is in Gaza. So why would anyone hear his story, read about him? I thought maybe no one wants to read about him. And that is unfortunate because I believe that people deserve to have their story told wherever they are and whoever they are.
What happened to him when he was 9 years old? Because that was an incredible, I don't know, when you learn about what he witnessed when he was a child, it is not surprising that he would want to become a militant. It's a series of decisions which becomes completely understandable.
Yes.
So what happened?
What happened to him is exactly what happened to so many other children in Gaza. It's what happened to me personally. I remember that incident. I think I wrote about it in my story about him. Okay, that story I wrote it 10 years ago and I avoided reading it after that. So I remember he came back home shivering and he told us, the family, that there was a tank in the street and it was shooting all the kids that passed the street. And it feels like unbelievable. Like there was a tank in the street in Deir al-Balah invading our city and it was just standing there. And anyone who crosses the street, it would shoot them dead. And back then, I remember he told us that many of those who were killed, many of the children who were killed were his colleagues at school.
So they were his friends.
not very close friends,
But
but they were
yeah.
at his school. And that story I could not forget. Imagine you live in a city, and then suddenly a tank from a foreign country came to you and started shooting at people who passed the street, just like that. Now, if you go back to history, you will not find any news about it. Do you know why? Because it's normal. It happened every day. Every day there would be a tank here or there that would come and shoot at the Palestinians, killing them, injuring them. That's our normal life. This is what we are used to. I remember when I was 6 and 7 years old, when I first started going to school, I was 6 years old. I did not go to kindergarten. So going to school was my first activity of my life when I was 6 years old. If you ask me, what do you remember from that year? I genuinely remember only working in these protests, attending these funerals of the martyrs, of the people who Israel killed, of Israeli airplanes hovering around the area, bombing a place here or a place there. When I was 6 years old, it was the second intifada, the first of the second intifada. I would still remember going back home and my father listened to BBC Arabic all the time. Today, Israel killed 6 Palestinians, 7 Palestinians. I would go to street, protests all the time. I was attending every protest there is when I was 6 years old. Why would a 6-year-old kid attend a protest? I did not even know what these protests are about. I was just attending them. Most of these protests were about killing Palestinians here or there. I still remember Muhammad al-Durra, the kid who was shot at his father's arm, and that was recorded. And everyone watched this video in the Arab world, not here. And he was just sitting in his father's arm and he was shot along with his father and he was killed. Or Iman Hajjo, who was 8 months old and her mother was carrying her when a tank shot them and killed the baby and her mother was injured. They did what? They did nothing. So this is the life that we had to go through. And then when I was, 13 years old, the siege started in Gaza, a blockade. Do you know it was a luxury to find a bar of chocolate in the supermarket? And as a child, that's what I wanted to have, chocolate or biscuits. And that
Just
was
like
a
any
luxury.
kid, just like any kid wants. You
Yeah.
want your chocolate, your biscuits. Yeah.
No, there was no chocolate, there was no
Yeah.
biscuit, there was no food, there was no clean water. My father was a taxi driver. After the second father, he became a taxi driver. There was no oil to run his car. So how would my father go to work and provide for our family? He had 9 children. All of them go to college and school and they need expenses.
One of the things I read, and you can tell me if this is true or not, but after the blockade was imposed, people went from using cars and, trucks to make deliveries to then using beasts of burden again, like donkeys, because there was no fuel for
Yeah,
cars. And
yeah.
so you went to an early stage of technology because of the blockade.
Of course. Well, my father was a taxi driver. So do you know how he would run his car? Well, he had to run his car. Because if my father did not work in a day, he will not be able to provide food for us. He never had savings. So if he did not work that day, we would starve that day. We would sleep starving that day. So my father would run his car using vegetable oil. And does that happen? It used to happen in Gaza. So every time he runs his car, you would smell that there are fries there. I swear. So he used it for a few months, and then the motor was destroyed. But he could provide for our family. And then at night there was Ramadan, and we don't have gas or electricity to cook our food. I remember my father would wake up at 3 a.m., go to the nearby piece of land, and he would collect some wood in order to make fire, to make a suhoor at Ramadan. That was our life when we were kids. And then a siege, and then war in 2008, another war in 2012, another war in 2014. And between all of these wars, and between the second intifada and these wars, there would always be incursions where a few tanks would come, invade our city and start shooting at people. So this was our life. And those who live this life, you don't expect them to be normal. That affected our mentality. That affected how we think of the world, how we behave. And so many people in Gaza, because of this kind of life, they decided to take some decisions. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I don't know. I'm not here to judge, but...
Were you worried about your brother when he, became a militant? Did it worry you? Were you worried about his safety?
Of course. Of course. How cannot you worry about your brother? And we always knew that, okay, he started this journey, he will be hurt eventually. But what can I do? I could not stop him.
What did he say? Did you ever talk about it? What would he say when you or other family members would say, you're going to get hurt?
Well, I remember my mother was very, very, very angry with him. She was very, very angry. She tried so hard to stop him. She would just cry day and night, stop, don't do this. He would not listen to anyone. He would not listen to anyone. He would always say that how he would say it. If I don't defend my country, who would? So for him, he was thinking of defending his country.
For him, he was doing it for you, and you were saying, no, don't.
Because we love our brother, and we don't want him to get hurt.
Yeah. How do people in the West react when you talk about your brother?
It depends on who is reading. Mm-hmm. For so many people, he is a terrorist because he's a resistance fighter. For so many, they admire him and they love him, but they wouldn't say that in public, out loud. So it depends who's reading.
Does it feel... When I talk about loved ones who I've lost, I never have to worry about what somebody is going to think about them or think about me. And I don't have to worry about it being potentially a criminal act for me to talk about admiring them or loving them or talking about their decisions. How does that context affect your ability to keep somebody alive in your memory and through the storytelling?
Listen, no matter what happens in the world, he was my brother and I love him. He took his decision. I did not take that decision. I will not do something similar to him in my life. I would never do it. He took that decision. It might be right, it might be wrong, I don't know. But for me, he's my brother. And politics is out when we talk about our family. He was my brother. In the book,
you say he was the golden child.
He was, when he was young.
And
my mother used to dress him in gold because she used to love him so much.
And that if he broke anything or had been naughty, nobody was allowed to punish him.
Yeah, and but if I break something, I would be punished immediately.
So he was your younger brother?
No, he was older brother.
Older brother.
He was 4 years older than me.
4 years older.
Yeah.
And it must have been awful. You're seeing him break the plate, doesn't get told off, and you...
He was always naughty when he was young, and he would always break, my home was full of vases and trees, artificial trees and all that, and he broke everything. Then second day, my mom, who broke this? And we're we all know who did, but...
See, you know what? I think I was that one. And my sister always says that I could get away with murder.
I know.
And I would knock things over and send everything flying.
But suddenly, Ayman, when he, after the year of 13, he was very naughty, he was very active, hyperactive all the time. And then suddenly he changed. And he was always very, very, very polite, very calm. And even at school, the teacher used to call him the Amir, Ayman Amir. Amir, it means like a prince. A prince in our culture means very polite. It's not like a prince rich.
Regal.
Very, very polite. And yeah, you would never tell that this very polite person could become a militant because it's not it doesn't make any sense. But yeah.
But he thought he was doing what was right.
Of course, that's what he thought.
How do Israelis view you and your work? Have you ever spoken to them about your experiences or this book? How do they react?
The Israelis? Well, I don't think the Israelis know about we are not numbers. The Israeli people, the Israeli government, I don't know what they think. I know what they think, but I don't know for a fact what they say. But there are Zionist organizations who are in the West who always attack our work. And they would always say that this book or the organization is I started this organization and I have a terrorist brother, so that undermines me and undermines the organization. So this is, and they try to attack us from that angle.
When that happens and you're under attack, does it feel intimidating, or does it feel like you know you're doing the right thing because look at who's attacking you?
Do you know how we think about it?
How?
They would always write these stories that try to smash me and get me deported out of this country because I'm writing the voices of the Palestinians and I'm talking about what's happening in Palestine. And the same people who attack me for speaking up, for writing the stories of the Palestinians and writing my story, are the same people who are literally carrying out a genocide in Palestine, in Gaza. The same people. Not the same individuals, but the same establishment, the same system, the same regime. They kill children in Gaza. They slaughter entire families. And then their propaganda come here to smear us and to threaten us and to attack us. And I think every time I have this feeling that, oh, why do they do this? And I say, okay, they're killing people. What do you expect them to do with me? They're literally killing children as a hobby. What do you expect them to do with me? At the same time, every time I feel like I slightly feel bad, I would remember that, Ahmad, wake up. Entire families are being murdered in Gaza. So the least you can do is to keep up your work. And when I think about this, I feel like whatever they try to do, no matter how much they try to hurt me, they could never hurt me. Because you can't compare what I'm going through to what the Palestinians in Gaza are going through. And even if they want to come and kill me here in London, I swear to God, I will never change. Because this is what we need to do, all of us, is to feel for the people in Gaza, to feel the crimes that are committed against the people in Gaza, and share their pain, at least with doing what is right. And what I don't do anything illegal. That's a secret. Everything I do is very legal, is by the book. I never encourage violence. I never encouraged violence. I would never encourage violence. Everything I talk about and I write and I read is all about peace and love and sympathy with those who are being murdered in Gaza. And what I do is that I amplify the Palestinian voices. This is all my life. So you come and attack me for doing what I do is actually evil. And in many events, I go and I speak and I tell the story of my family, how Israel killed all my family. Imagine going to an event and hear someone tell you how Israel killed his entire family members, his mother, his father, his brothers, his sisters, his nieces, his nephews, his home. And then you come out of that event and you attack that person. You must be very evil to do that. And those evil people, when they do that, they never hurt me. They hurt themselves when they do that. Because what are you if you do this evil? What are you?
Have you ever spoken to somebody who would call themselves a liberal Zionist? So they would say things like, oh, I hate Netanyahu, but Israel has a right to self-defense. There are rockets aimed at Tel Aviv. Their instinct is to center Israeli experiences of war and violence. Have you ever had conversations with people like that? And if so, what is that like for you? What is it like for you to hear the story being told from that point of view right in front of you? So not just in the media, but there in front of you.
Well, I used to hear this from people who are not Israelis, Americans. I heard it from so many Americans. I wouldn't call them friends, but they were acquaintances, and I would hear their idea, and I never got it, to be honest. But I would always excuse them and say, okay, they don't know the full picture. They were fed with misinformation their entire life as American Jews, and I would say, okay, like, okay, I don't agree with you, but okay. But after the genocide, everything changes. Those who describe themselves as liberal Zionists, who say Netanyahu is bad, but Israel has the right to self-defense. Well, Israel was established in the ruins of my family and the Palestinian people. How can you ever justify that? Israel existed because my family and the Palestinian people were literally slaughtered and kicked out of their country. And ever since, all the Palestinians have been going through is murder, killing, war, land theft, occupation, genocide, siege. How could you ever justify that? It doesn't matter if you are a liberal Zionist or hardcore Zionist. You are a Zionist. And Zionism is a death cult. Zionism literally means that some people deserve my land more than me just because they are of this ethnic group. It is wrong. It is just racist. And I am anti-racist. I don't want anyone to tell me that just because these people were Jews, they deserve my land more than me. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. And I will never, enough is enough. If you are a Zionist, you are a Zionist. Liberal or hardcore or whatever, right wing, I don't care. You are a Zionist. And your ideology is wrong. And this ideology has to be dismantled. I said it before, I say it again. This ideology is wrong and it has to be dismantled.
I've seen you on British media and I've seen the kinds of questions that you've had to deal with when you're trying to tell your story. When a British journalist is asking you, do you condemn Hamas? What is it that they're really asking? What's the real question there?
Do you know what the real question is? The real question is, if you're a Palestinian, you have to prove to me that you are worthy of speaking to before we start a conversation. You'll have to... they want to question my humanity or my ethics before they start. So if I condemn Hamas, then I am a good person to talk to. If I don't condemn Hamas, then whatever I say is ignored. And then and they want me to condemn Hamas. Do you know why? Because if I condemn Hamas, then I will give Israel a justification to carry out the genocide in Gaza. And by the way, I don't have a problem with condemning Hamas. I'm a very big critic of Hamas. I said it many times before. I'm a critic of Hamas. I don't like Hamas, okay? But I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to condemn Hamas. And I'm not going to say I don't like Hamas in a mainstream Western media. Because if I say it, then I am justifying the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. And I'm justifying the killing of the Palestinians at the genocide. This is how it's viewed. They want me to condemn Hamas, to use it as, okay, look, a Palestinian journalist who lost all of his family, he condemned Hamas, then Hamas is bad, then Israel has the right to go and genocide the people in Gaza.
Well, even he's saying Hamas is bad,
Exactly.
so of course Israel has to.
Of course, and the war is not against Hamas. And we all know this war is not against Hamas. It was from the very beginning, and we Palestinians, we knew it from the very beginning. This war is not against Hamas. This war is against all the Palestinian people, every single one of the Palestinian people, and they will not stop before they ethnically cleanse the Palestinians in Gaza. So I don't want to be part of this war. I don't want to be part of this genocide against my people. We know their games. We know their traps, and we will not fall into them.
What are the traps and the tricks and the tropes used in the West to try and constrain how people talk about the Palestinian cause? You know, if you had to write the guidebook to the techniques that are being used to close down the space, what would be in there?
You know, I did my master's degree here in the UK, and my dissertation was the Western media coverage of the March of Return in Gaza. So I studied how the BBC and how other publications write about Gaza. And it was all dehumanizing. It was always dehumanizing. The Palestinians were always portrayed as, the Islamists and anti-Semites. We were always portrayed as people who hate the Jews. And it doesn't matter how much we tell them we don't hate the Jews. We love the Jews as much as we love Christians and Muslims and other religions. It doesn't matter. If you are a Palestinian, then you're anti-Semitic. And you'll always have to prove that you are anti-Semitic. By what? Not by saying that I'm not an anti-Semite. If I say it from now until the end of time, I'm not an anti-Semite, I love the Jews, it doesn't matter.
You can never prove something isn't in your head. And that's why the game works in the way that it does.
Yeah. But how do they want me to prove that I'm not anti-Semite? I will always have to attack the Palestinians and watch my people burn and killed and genocided and say nothing about it. In order to be a good Palestinian, you'll have to be a silent Palestinian. You'll have to be a non-Palestinian. You have to attack your identity, your religion, your culture. And of course, like Hamas, right? Yeah, Hamas is not enough nowadays. So that is the trope, that you always have to attack yourself to be believed. Your story alone, it's not enough. My story alone as Ahmed is not enough. I was interviewed by the BBC many times. There will always be another Israeli next to me, so that my story, like on its own, it's not enough,
Because then it's, oh, well, he's saying this. Who knows what the truth is?
Exactly. You will always they will always tell you that this story is complicated. Israel-Palestine is complicated. There are two sides to the story. Hamas run Ministry of Health and all of that. So we'll always want to confuse you. They don't want to tell you the truth as it is. In the media, you will never hear about the settlements, for example. You will never hear how Israel is literally eating up the lands of the Palestinians. They will never let you know more about the Nakba. Literally, this is the cause of all of our problems, the Nakba. The media will never tell you about the Nakba. They will always start from the Palestinian reaction. And no matter how Israel kills people before the Palestinians react, it doesn't matter. For example, in 2023, before the 7th of October, it was the deadliest year for the Palestinian children in the West Bank. The media does not talk about it. But the moment a Palestinian attacks an Israeli, that's where the story starts. And there's a saying by Marid al-Barghouti, a very famous Palestinian writer, who said, if you want to win the argument, start from secondly. Don't start from first. And this is what happens in the media. They always start from second. They always start when Palestinians react. They always start when Palestinians make a mistake or not a mistake. It was always our problem as Palestinians to exist. And it's exhausting. But nowadays, people are sick and tired of that. Finally, and I'm sad to say that it took us a genocide so that people really see through the lies of the mainstream media.
I want to ask you how it feels to be living in this country. You've said already there is a degree of freedom of movement and physical safety that you can have here that your friends, your family, your loved ones in Gaza do not have. And yet, of course, the UK government has given diplomatic cover to Israel. It has sold weapons. It continues to sell F-35 components. And I know that you work closely with Matt Kennard, who has been on this series before, who has kept an eye on and reported on the RAF flights which go from Cyprus and over to Gaza. We know about the political story of complicity, but if you could tell me a bit about what that's like for you. You're living in this country has offered a place of safety for you as an individual, but it is so deeply implicated. in this genocide?
Wow. You know, this idea is always, I always think about it. I feel like, how should I feel about the UK government? The UK government provide me with safety here in this country. And I'm happy that I'm safe in this. I'm happy to live in the UK. I love the UK. I love the land. I love the people. They're amazing. The people here, they're amazing. And I'm happy that the UK government gave me the scholarship to come here. I came with a Chevening scholarship, which is provided by the British government. They paid me to come to this country and to receive education in this country. And I'm lucky. And by the way, I am alive because I got a Chevening scholarship and I managed to travel from Gaza to the UK. Otherwise, I would have been killed with my family because it was my home that was bombed. But at the same time, I think, okay, the British government saved my life, but it is because of the British government, Israel manages to continue the genocide. And it is because the British government, my family died in Gaza. And it is because of Britain and Balfour Declaration. We have all of this problem in the first place. Balfour Declaration. They gave away our homeland to the Zionist militias to come and kick us out. And they have always provided the cover for Israel, the diplomatic cover for Israel, the arms trade, the bombs. The bomb that killed my family, part of it was manufactured here in the UK. The aeroplane that killed my family, part of it was designed here in the UK. The bullets that are shot at my people in Gaza, some of them were imported from here in the UK. So the UK government, not the people, is deeply complicit in the genocide in Gaza. And not only the genocide, but the occupation of the Palestinian lands. And until now, the UK government still refuses to recognize 22% of the Palestinian land as a Palestinian land. They refuse to recognize Palestine as a state. And I always how should I feel about the UK government? And eventually I say, okay, I wish I did not survive. I wish I stayed with my family and was killed with my family, other than having to live with this struggle in my mind. That some people saved me, but they killed my family. So how should I think about it? What I want from the British government is to end their complicity. If they end their complicity, I will be the best lover of the British government of all time. I love Britain. I love the UK. I love the West, but I hate how they are complicit in the genocide in Gaza against my people, against my family. And I really want them to stop. I really want them to wake up and look at the Palestinian people as people, not as numbers, not as statistics, not as human animals.
I suppose I've got one final question, and we've talked so much about the way you have to shoulder not just the burden of grief, the burden of ongoing trauma, but the responsibility. You have to demonstrate immense resilience to keep going. I think if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. I just don't think I would have that in me.
I believe you.
But yeah, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could. So my final question is this. Where do you draw strength from in these horrific times? Who inspires you? What do you look at to feel a sense of hope or optimism or even just the grit to keep going for another day?
I believe in justice. I believe in human rights. I believe in equality. And I believe that the vast majority of people all around the world are good people. They're not bad people. They're not monsters. Although we are governed by monsters. But the vast majority of people in this country and in the West and all around the world are good people who all care for human rights, who care for the international law, who care for justice. And I read history. Not that I'm a historian, but I read history. They always know that those who cling to their rights, those who do not give up despite all the odds, they will eventually emerge victorious. And I know that the Palestinians are victorious, even if they're genocided, even if Israel carry out the worst human rights violation against the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people will always emerge victorious. Even if all of us die, we will be victorious. And Israel is doomed to have us as an enemy. We're not an easy enemy. And we will not just give away our homes. We will not give away our lands. We will never forget the oppressors for what they have done against us. Israel, for the end of time, they will carry that guilt of doing a genocide against the Palestinian people. And I know if we want to win, we'll have to continue the fight, the struggle. We have to continue calling for our rights, raising the Palestinian voices, and mobilize action for Palestine. If we give up and say, okay, Israel is too strong to be fought, if we are scared of speaking up and sharing our stories, then that moment we are defeated. And I assure you, as a Palestinian, that we Palestinians, we do not like to be defeated. We don't like it. We like to win. And we like to be free. And we like to have our rights back, our freedom back, our country back. And until that day, we will not stop. Am I hopeful or not hopeful? That doesn't really matter. I will not waste my time thinking about hope and not hope. I will waste my time thinking about what can I do and how I should help in the liberation of the Palestinian people. Whether I achieve that goal or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is the journey. And I am living that journey. And the Palestinians are living that journey.
You're like this as an English literature graduate. This was Nelson Mandela's favourite quote from Shakespeare, and it was from Julius Caesar. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once.
Wow.
And apparently he had that with him in Robben Island prison.
Wow. Well, Nelson Mandela is someone who gives me hope and power and faith. He spent 20 years in a prison. The black people in South Africa suffered apartheid. They suffered what we are suffering right now in Gaza. I don't like always to compare, but many of the causes around the world are similar. And I think the cause of our pain and their pain in the past is racism. Our suffering in Palestine is because some people think that they are better than us, that more worthy than us. But the South African did not give in. Nelson Mandela spent 20 years in a prison. Then he emerged as the president of the Free South Africa. And this what will happen to the Palestinians. South Africa was also supported by the Western governments. Nelson Mandela was called a terrorist. Eventually, when they got their rights back, when they were free, everyone thought, like Omar Aqad says, everyone will always have been against this. And one day, everyone will always be against the genocide in Gaza. It will happen. I see it in front of my eyes. I say it before and I say it again. People, free people all around the world, they have seen enough videos and films from Gaza of dead children. And what we have seen, we will never unsee it. We will never forget it. The stories we heard, we will never unhear them. They will live with us until the end of time. And it is not the Palestinians who should be worried. It is the Israeli apartheid and the Israeli regime that should be worried about their future, not us. And we don't have to fight them. We don't have to go and be violent with Israel. Trust me, history will not be mercy with them.
Ahmed Alnaouq, thank you so much for joining us on Downstream. An
Thank you very
incredible
much.
conversation.
Thank you for having me.